Hi, everyone. Welcome to Not Medical Advice, medical stories that showcase effective medical options you haven't heard of or you never seriously considered. And just like the show title, by the way, the disclaimer, this video and podcast is not intended to be used as medical advice, and there's no claim that anything I mention can be used to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease or injury. You are responsible for what happens if you use information in this show to treat any medical condition, and I am not responsible for anything you do. It's really about that simple. So to start off, I'm going to say I'm going to start some screen sharing in just a moment, but this is a show right now. This is episode 3, going to be covering a specific story of a client who came to me here in my office, my home clinic right here, with problems circulating around anxiety and insomnia. She couldn't sleep. That was the big deal. Sleeping, is when you can't sleep, that is the major deal. The anxiety was kind of like an ever-present thing going on. And as I'm going to kind of unfold in this story, it'll make it more and more sense as I go along, basically. Just starting up some screen sharing just a second. Trying to find it here. I think I got it. Presentation there. Yeah. Trying to one thing at a time from the beginning. There, my logo. I keep this in mind. I'm just going to draw it back to the logo for a second. This is not intended to be medical advice. And I'm not just saying that because I want to be legally protected and I don't want YouTube or authorities going after me or my medical license. Pretty sure I can say whatever I want. I'm keeping everything confidential. No one gets to know who the client is that I'm describing in the situation. But basically, this client shows up to me. I'll get to this part on the screen in a moment, but this is how I found them some help, by the way. The client showed up to me very noticeably upset, spent a good amount of time going over all the problems. Irritable bowel syndrome, flare-ups. This was something that she had been dealing with. The age of the client is, I think we're pushing late 50s, and that this is a woman who's had some upper GI problems. She's taken some proton pump inhibitors before, so acid reflux, upper GI problems. There was history of what she would describe as PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder. Her sort of, some of the time frame of when her father died recently. I think her mom was sick for a long time with ulcerative colitis. There's a lot of emotionality going on for her in general, and there's the big thing that she would often say as the concern is anxiety during the day and insomnia at night. So I'll go back to, as I was starting to understand what are all the drugs. So when I have people come into the home clinic here, I don't just have them bring a list of drugs that they take. I have them bring the actual drugs that they were taking. There were some supplements, some natural healthcare supplements that were brought in as well. But I was getting to the idea, basically Valium and Xanax were the ones that were depended upon during the day and a little bit used at nighttime to try to get some sleep. Funny and interesting thing, by the way, if you just to go to Xanax, okay, which is like the at least every other day and sometimes everyday medicine for the client. Just gonna have to figure this out here. Stop the share. Start the share again. I need to find. We'll start with that. Xanax side effects. Common side effects of Xanax. Besides drowsiness, tiredness, and dizziness, sleep problems like insomnia, memory problems, poor balance or coordination, trouble concentrating, slurred speech. I mean, it just goes on and on. Like, this is a powerful medicine. I'm not going to take time in the show to unpack how the medicines were built and what they do. I'll just say it this way. I mean, to cut to the chase, I use the methods that I pretty much recommend. I use methods of biocompatibility testing in my personal practice. And the first step of the practice is I sit down with the client and I was going through everything. She stopped sleeping about 9 weeks ago. Some history with constipation. Um, she's a big list of all these medicines that she was actually working on testing out. The ones that she wasn't taking regularly were included hydroxyzine, and let's see, trazodone. She tried just very, very briefly, Seroquel, clonidine, Ambien, and Cymbalta. Those were the ones that were more sporadic, basically. Cymbalta was one that was more of a 2-week thing at 20 milligrams. Doesn't, for me, what really matters is this is a lot of drugs. I mean, these are some heavy duty drugs. Like anyone who's taking this stuff, I can easily imagine that in your day life, you're going to feel anxious and all wound up. And there was a lot of anxiety right here in the chest area. There's a lot of stress. The stress was, this is a client not having financial stress. That's not her stress. The stress was actually her place in the world. I took some time. I had 3 visits with this client to help to cause some help for the client, basically. And definitely to just get there, what are the methods that I was using? Well, to start with, I love to use a little bit of what I know in acupuncture is I love to use the acupuncture points to try to help calm things down. And I think of acupuncture kind of like the way some people think of homeopathy. It's a subtle, but moves things energetically. The bioenergetic field gets moved by the system. So I started off with some of that, but the first points that I did, which would be stomach 36 on the legs there, right near the knees, I did those points with magnets. I put some considerably strong little magnets on there, and I taped them on. And I tested the client to see which polarity side was the appropriate side of the magnet to use, and made sure that it was biocompatible. I did some laser work. Here's an example of laser. See, that's a laser on some of the points. And I certainly inserted needles. In case you really want to know, the size of the needles is 0.16 millimeters thick, needles at 30 millimeters long from handle to tip. And I obviously don't insert them all the way, just a wee bit in here and there. I don't think I really used probably more than maybe 12 needles total for that first treatment. And I just tried to, find out what things are going wrong. Testing of the iliopsoas muscle of the legs, both very, very weak. And I believe also the quadriceps muscles. This is tested in the supine position. So that's like face up kind of thing. So that's kind of sounding that sounds like too much like I'm a professor here. I need to make this a bit more interesting. She calmed down a bit during that first treatment, but nothing like some client who like I had a client recently here treating for dermatological and intestinal conditions, which to some degree is slightly similar because this has an intestinal component for this anxiety and insomnia client. That client, though, very relaxed. 8 minutes after inserting needles, this client is asleep, snoring even. That's part of the intestinal problems. If you snore, there are intestinal issues. Just saying. But still really relaxed, and their body fully dives into it. This is an anxious client, so I can easily overdo it. If the client did fall asleep and I left needles in too long, this would really, really be disturbing to this kind of client. So I did not in any way was this client falling asleep during the 3 sessions that she had here with me. I just basically did my best to say, she showed up with anxiety, she left with less anxiety. She showed up with fear and despair, and she left with some idea of hope that this is just the beginning. One of my medical teachers, Cody Templeton, told me something very important. He said, Daryl, you can be their last hope, but you better not be their only last hope. And what he meant by that was engage with people with big problems, medically speaking, as part of a team. Show them that there's lots of options, and I want to just emphasize that fact. There were so many options to look into. And by the way, just jumping over to another medicine, Cymbalta. I mean, so many warnings of what that would do, but that was only for 2 weeks that she took that. Yeah, side effects. Thank you. Um, Sleepiness in the day, I would say, but other, basically weakness. They're, that there were weak muscles in general, constipation, and this client definitely had some constipation. Things got better after the first treatment, enough like so that I was seeing this client. I believe I saw them 3 days in a row, because that's all the time that the client had before, once again, not being on island, going off island. So that's all the chance I had before I would have to go to the final step, which is finding them a practitioner in their location over there on the East Coast, which I did. And I covered how to do that in the last show. I mean, that I did, episode 2 and episode 1, actually. It's not that hard to do, but I mean, I mostly tried to do my best. So the first treatment went really well. Second treatment here, reported better after the first treatment. Still, big problems with sleeping, needing to take medicines. Gabapentin was actually attempted by her too. Actually, she had quite a pharmacopoeia of some powerful pharmaceuticals in her little kit bag over there, and luckily seems to have been, understanding that they're all a problem. The things that tested well for the client at the end of the first treatment were charcoal capsules to try to do some form of detoxification, cordyceps mushrooms, which we covered in the last show, and that's Cordyceps mycelia from Cordyceps militaris. Just look up Host Defense Cordyceps. Host Defense is a brand, Cordyceps is a mushroom, and you'd understand, that medicine seemed to work well. And then I moved on towards, just basically as little of the hydroxyzine as she possibly could. She was taking a quarter of each of these tablets, basically, and obviously only taking it when she absolutely had to. Her thoughts that she reported were she's never going to get better. That's always one of the number one fears of clients, is that who are in an acute stage of a medical problem. Actually, chronic stage is even worse. It's just like that. It's just, I've tried everything, I'm never going to get it up. So no disrespect to clients who are in the midst of this medical problem or other similar medical problems. It's very distressing to have a big issue that you've gone to various people to try to get help for. When I see people, it's like I'm like somewhere like way, they've tried everything, is this phrase that everyone loves to say, that phrase. Everyone loves to be a parrot, to be like a parrot. The genus Psittaci, that's where you get the word Psittacism. It's parroting. That's what it's a fancy word for parroting. Everyone loves to say the same thing everyone else says. You get to blend in and make friends when you say the same phrases everyone else does. Mostly it's unconscious. I like to bring it to the consciousness. No, you didn't try everything. I didn't try everything. And if I didn't try everything, for sure you didn't try everything, because I know things to try that you didn't even know to try. You didn't even know existed, So yeah, that's a kind of thing. Basically, the fear, there was upsettedness, but there were bowel movements, no longer constipated. There's the other way now 10 bowel movements across a short span of time even. So things were starting to move, intestinally speaking. Food-wise, there were, nuts, eggs, some cheese and tortilla, rice. Client has marginal interest in improving the diet, but for the most part, I have to just stay with what the client really wanted. I encouraged to increase bone broth. I encouraged to be careful or decrease quinoa. Client was not bringing in lots of foods to test, so I'm fully grasping on some foods, for sure. Again, treatment went fairly well. I just went through the process to, find the specific acupuncture points to try to help move things and settle things down a little bit. The interesting thing about this is fascinating. How does acupuncture even work? Very contested kind of subject. It's really, really tricky to find out exactly how the electromagnetic subtle DC millivolt systems of a human body work. And I say, DC millivolt, like it's very microcurrent kind of things. But essentially with acupuncture, homeopathy, and subtle electromedicine methods, such as those, you're kind of pushing the electromagnetic things subtly. When I put a big magnet or a powerful magnet on, not so subtle. When I heat up an area with a laser like that, not so subtle. Again, that's not really it. I think I'm going to stop the screen share for the moment. So yeah, in the end of it all, what happens like this? The client feels better after a treatment. They get that idea of we're moving forward. Things are less anxiety in the day. There's still trouble getting to sleep. And by that second treatment, I found, oh, lo and behold, probably move towards trying to take some melatonin in the day as well as in the night as necessary. And I believe the client did, and that kind of helped. By the final treatment, client was taking some magnesium citrate and melatonin in the daytime. And I also had capsules of adrenal cortex and adrenal medulla from pure encapsulations. I could put that on the screen, but I didn't bother to do the show prep for that. Damn, it's good to have the sun out. It's been heavy rainy over here in Hawaii. So yeah, it's nice to have that. I'm going to sit out in the sun after this video. That's for sure. Get some sun on me. What I'm getting to is that the client really just wanted to feel like things were moving and that they got that chance. The intestines started moving after the first treatment. They're starting to see that they can diminish the anxiety in the daytime. The big fear in the day was just that they were going to have sleepless time at nighttime. What I was trying to encourage them is to try to change the attitude temporarily. She will get sleep. She's not completely without sleep because that literally would kill you after several days. No, she just is deficient in the amount of sleep, and she's not sleeping when she wants to, which is when everyone else is sleeping, which is actually good, healthy times to sleep. It actually helps to regenerate the body when you're asleep from the hours of around 10 till 10 p.m. to approximately, 5 or 6 a.m., basically. And that span is really, really regenerative. And to wake up in the midst of that, to have to urinate and use the bathroom is interrupting it, and you don't go as deep. I have to tell you, as someone I love it when I sleep all the way through the night. As a guy who's slowly growing older, I kind of hate it when I know that it's a medical sign, something for me to take care of when I don't sleep all the way through the night. So I was encouraging her that a lot of the anxiety is partially caused by some of the causes that I was testing was caused by the impact of these medicines that literally would drive you to that kind of feeling, that tension in the chest and tightness. And there was also not a mental, emotional discipline skills. I'm going to get into that in this video series, that there are actually skills to think more efficiently, so that things are, more efficiently dealt with, and to balance the emotions, to understand and respect the emotions. You don't want to push the emotions down. Emotions are there to show you something, and as an example, happiness is to show that you've got things that you want, the qualities that you want in life: harmony, health, senses of meaning and purpose, effectiveness, connection, comfort, support, respect, spontaneity, and play. These are the qualities. If you have all of those that I just mentioned, you generally have happiness. Like as I look back, I even see a little bit of blue sky behind me, like right there. That's pretty freaking cool. I'm gonna go take a walk in the sun later because it could have been a whole full-on rainy day today, but it's not. When you have everything, that you want. I interpret this world as those qualities of health. I've got power. I can take a hike. I've got, strength. I've got these things. I interpret the world of these qualities and I get to have happiness. Fear is that I'm going to lose it. So anxiety is just another word for a flavor of fear. That's how I like to put it. 4 cardinal emotions, 4, and they are just for giving you flavors of what's going on. So this is a client who had the flavor of fear going on and anxiety, meaning that she was going to lose it. She was going to lose her life. She was losing her connection to her purpose and meaning. In fact, questioning her further on the second visit, she was not clear on what gives her meaning and purpose to her life. Like I get meaning and purpose for their life from helping people. Like I will give treatments until I can't draw breath anymore. It's the thing that I love doing. I will always love doing it. It's so damn fun for me. This client did not have meaning and purpose to her life yet. So that's cool. Now her new meaning and purpose is to find meaning and purpose to her life. It's a funny thing like that. If you don't have a mission, then your mission is to find your mission. And when I mean mission, I'm not saying some platitude that you pin like your business or company around. For me, a mission is a vision coupled with an action. So the vision of the world that I want to create, that's a vision. The actions that I'm tangibly going to take to make that world happen, I put them together, that's a mission. I create a world of increased and abundance and decreased scarcity by repairing my own and other people's health situations. That's one of my missions. I have a couple others, but in order to do that, I know specifically how I'm going to go about to doing that, and I do that. The client was missing that kind of thing. So yeah, there's a lot of restless sleep and things like that going on. I definitely had designated, okay, by the second visit, by the way, the charcoal was not working. So I sold her a bottle of some charcoal capsules. A whole bottle? Yeah, I sold her it was an opened bottle of charcoal capsules that was discounted. And I bought it right back because it didn't test the second time. And she had a bad feeling about it. And when the client has a bad feeling, also it tests wrong, not biocompatible for the client. I love my medicines. I'll buy back my medicines. I highly recommend that you see clients. I mean, you out there, I highly recommend that you invest in practitioners who will buy back any medicines that that they don't like or they have negative side effects from, because that's not good business to sell stuff to people. Now, of course, if they eat all of the medicine up and then want their money back afterwards, that's not right. I mean, like if there's something to purchase, if they take some and they stop taking it, then it's a good thing to purchase back. That third visit, I really had things much more going on. They were only taking hydroxyzine a tiny bit after melatonin. And this was a client that was not so interested in compliance. She was part of the whole thing was that she'd get a feeling that she should take this and not take this and take this and not take this. And she'd go with that. And amidst all of this, blah, 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 going like words going on in the head, I'm pretty sure she was choosing wrong. She was not biocompatibility testing. I know how to biocompatibility test myself. Accuracy is determined based upon how healthy I am feeling at the moment and how healthy I actually am. And, this was not someone who's trained in any of that. So yeah, it was just all about finding what are the ways to open things up. I was encouraging, that she was going to do what she's already doing, meditation CD. She's been getting more sleep. She wakes up at dark, and I was trying to encourage her, that's your time to wake up for a little bit, maybe even get up and see that this is the world. Yes, other people are asleep, but not everyone in the world sleeps at night. Some people do their best work at night. I understand the goal is to get to sleeping, but to reduce the anxiety down, to say it's okay temporarily, just to have hope that it's going to be okay. Okay, and so that was the net result of that. I'm gonna go back to doing some screen sharing in a moment. Man, it is one of the worst formats here. I got to get rid of my toolbar. There's so many more technical issues to deal with here. So many clicks to do one thing. Ridiculous. Just going to, the next slide, basically. How I found her practitioner, and I was only, in this case, I was only finding one practitioner, even though this is a client who had honestly, they had some capacity for deep pockets, an ability to, pay for things and not worry about it. This client was really, really concerned that the only applied and clinical kinesiologist trained practitioners I was able to find were chiropractors. I had to explain that to find someone who's not a chiropractor, say like Touch for Health, if you looked up Touch for Health, is really challenging. There's not that many of them out there. To find someone as a chiropractor who's pretty trained in AK, maybe even in clinical kinesiology, CK, is much easier, especially, in the places I had to actually not use ICAKUSA.com, find a doctor. I had to go through Health Profs to find her an AK practitioner. And I'm hoping to get some feedback. She had one visit and liked the guy. And I'm going to try to, send some text messages and see if she'll respond. Always it's on them for them to respond. But for you out there, if you're curious on finding healthcare providers, especially if you're not so concerned about paying out of pocket for, like, I don't know, only the most important thing ever, your health, So I have some chips on my shoulder about that. You'll buy an $800 surfboard. You'll, buy some fancy rims for your car, and you're going to balk at paying $500 for some practitioner because, oh no, it's being spent on your health, and that should be provided for free because you're entitled to stuff. Yeah. Step one, you're entitled to nothing would be a great attitude. You desire everything or all kinds of things. Not everything. You desire all kinds of things. And it's on you to make a win-win situation for you to get what you want. The sooner that more people step into their own power and realize that, like, when I'm pointing to these practitioners on the screen here, these methods of finding a practitioner, this is like your way to find an army, and you're the general. These practitioners are your soldiers. They're there to do your bidding. That's a totally different perspective than too many disempowered clients will walk into a practitioner place, even mine, and they'll be seeking to, have me tell them what to do. Oh, and I will tell them what I suggest they do, because that's what I'm being paid to do. But I'm also suggesting that they build up a sense of intuition, a sense of how things work between treatments. It's really important to know that. So yeah, that in the end of it all, time to stop that share. In the end of it all, it's really just important to just understand. Man, I need multiple sizes of this thing. It's really just important to understand that you're there in control, and that this was a very upset client for each of the visits, but certainly especially the first visit. I went from someone who was just really upset. There's no sharing with them any critique of what they have done wrong or to add to their own situation, such as to do years of Valium and Xanax and other things like that. I mean, the one thing that tested well for all visits was CBD extract coming from Bluebird, the company. And that was the thing that I encouraged them to go ahead and do more of. Just increase that component of that. CBD seems to be extremely anti-inflammatory for all clients that I find it to test for. It doesn't test for all clients, but it works really well for many. It's a pretty good one. It's pretty innocuous. It doesn't cloud the head or change the perception to any noticeable degree by anyone that I've ever known taking it. The only reason I'm not taking it is because it's an investment that I'm not feeling like putting the money into right away. Although I think it would be damn good to do so. I'm going to suggest to Daryl, go ahead and do that. So I did all of this. I tried to encourage them, take some time, use melatonin during the daytime, at small doses. And then again at nighttime, use the adrenal by pure encapsulations to try to boost up the power. Use the cordyceps and get more to boost up that, basically the adrenal functions, to boost up empowerment and energy levels. And when you're boosted up in the daytime with things like adrenals and cordyceps, like up during the day and down at night, the way it needs to be, getting that cycle back turned on, instead of being like tired in the day and now you're really, really tired and now wound up at night. That's kind of where she was at the end of, all before I got to actually start working for her. She was already like, dropping in energy all during the daytime, no noticeable power in these leg muscles. If you wanted to ever look up psoas or iliopsoas testing of the leg muscles on YouTube, I bet you could find some pretty cool practitioners who are showing off their applied kinesiology skills. And that does, kidney and adrenal health can be tested that way, although gracilis and other leg muscles are more precise for certain adrenal testing. And obviously therapy localizing the TL, that's touching a point. Right now I'm touching the TL for, well, on acupuncture, that's called lung 1, but it also does actually test pretty damn well for the lungs. There's many ways to test things. The important part when you're going to a practitioner who's doing biocompatibility testing is understanding that it's a snapshot in time. You get to change. Your body changes all the time. When fixing things on my car over there, pointing to my car in my lanai over there, cars, once you fix it, it stays right where you put it. Obviously when you're driving it a lot, then that's where things keep like functionally moving, but it stays where you put it. Biochemistry of the body keeps shifting. And there were a lot of heavy drugs going into this client. So things are going to take somewhat time to settle down. This is a lot. And it's going to be very important for this client to go ahead and pursue this practitioner. I'm actually fascinated to see if there'll be a part 2 for this story. I don't know if there'll be a part 2 because like I need to know, will I get like a feedback on anything? But it won't be the only anxiety and insomnia client that I feature in this show, because it's not the only anxiety and insomnia client that I've worked for. I've worked for a bunch of them. This is just one story. So I'll find out what happens regarding the practitioner that I sent them to. She was unhappy that it was a chiropractor. Why does it have to be a chiropractor? I hate chiropractors. Bad experience with chiropractors. Yeah, blah, 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 blah. I let her say all that. And at the end, I get a message saying, actually, she likes this guy. I picked a pretty good guy. That's the point of it, is that these are people to find and give you some hope that you can determine things and that everything is a snapshot in time. It's just a way of doing it. But so now I'm at the end of the story, but now I go into what's called the, blue sky it for me, Daryl, like that little bit of blue sky right up here. What would I do if this client was willing to use her like money, or what if she had zero limits to money? I'm sure she has limits to money. What if she had no limits? What would I do? And of course, besides, just like getting on a plane trip to see like the medical providers that taught me, or the ones that were their colleagues that I learned from and got to meet, those are worth it kind of investments. Going to do a detox situation at a resort where you're taking intravenous vitamin C, intravenous glutathione, like those would be high level kind of things that could be done, but that can be done in your city. There's many medical providers who could just do that and give you intravenous vitamin C, intravenous glutathione, and intravenous EDTA. That's essentially a chelating agent to remove toxic components, heavy metal toxins of certain kinds. I would probably go further and, have the medical providers testing to see which ones are compatible, what doses would be likely to be helpful, and then testing after, the therapy, in this case, a chelating agent or, intravenous vitamin C or glutathione has been added. I would be looking in that direction to see what's going. But wait, there's more, by the way. There would be electromagnetic devices. I would consider, in this case, some expensive Rife machine. I'm going to go into that one in a future show, electromedicine tools, and I'll have some beautiful pictures of the tools to use. The GB4000, that's a Rife frequency generator, and finding a practitioner to measure which frequencies to use it on. I'm one of them. There's many other practitioners who can measure these devices to see what frequency boosts up the proper functions. Again, this is blue skying it. That's a lot of money spent, but what if you had no limits to money spending? That's what I would do. I'd certainly would, I would have a practitioner give me the acupuncture points to treat myself with. I'd give myself a laser like that. Technically speaking, I'm not allowed to sell or dispense acupuncture needles or teach people how to do acupuncture, technically. But there are other practitioners who would dispense with needles and show them how to do that. And I would say I fully support that idea, even if it's against our guild. I like the idea. It's one of the most innocuous. It's either going to help you or it's not going to help. It's not going to be doing much at all, in which case the points are wrong or you're doing it wrong. There's only a few ways to hurt oneself with acupuncture. Puncturing too deep around the lungs on the front or on the back, too deep into the lungs, that's a trip to the emergency room. That's a punctured lung or pneumothorax. That's one. And the other is puncturing any of the internal organs on the abdomen. That's the two. And I guess three would be obviously around the eyes or other important face areas. Like, obviously, don't do that. Don't go deep with needles until you know how. And chances are, if, you're teaching yourself acupuncture somehow, you don't know how. So that's it. But, I can say that the caveat still holds. This is not medical advice. I learned by having medical classes and also by having a medical professional show me how to put needles in, and then doing it myself and on many others in literally thousands of hours of observed clinic where an actual licensed provider was watching what I was doing over and over again. And I learned very quickly that anyone can do this kind of thing. And that's why I love magnets, and that's why I love lasers. They're just awesome. They're amazing. I'm going to try it right into the light. It's a bright one. This is 100 milliwatts. And right now, 100 milliwatt laser, $20 on Amazon. $20. I mean, that's ridiculous. Do you know how to use that? No, probably you do not. I would blue sky it where I would say there's many medical electromagnetic devices. I like Skinar devices. I've got one here. What's called the Chans 2. Looks like this. On the contact plate looks like this. And turning it on, and I just put it on. I would know how to find the points. That's the step one. You need to know how to find the points, how to test for them. And once you find the points, you turn up the intensity of the device, and now you're treating acupuncture points legally. In addition, it also treats things really well for pain. That's what most people buy and use this kind of device for. It's a very simple device. These ones, $200. There are Skinner devices that are well in excess of 5,000. I'm pretty sure. I got to be turned on to Skinner devices by one of my clients. That was 7 years ago. I got to be turned on to Skinner devices by a client, and his device was $8,000. And what a perfect device it was. So I would definitely consider getting that type of Skinar device for fully. If I had like blue sky it and there was no monetary limit. So yeah, that's the basic gist of it. Go back to, boy, it's a trick to figure everything out here. The main thing that I wanted to just point to, if I could just point to anything, was that there's an empowerment for all of this. I really want people to feel extremely empowered that you can find a practitioner to help you. It doesn't have to be this, what would that be called? It doesn't have to be such a dire situation. That if you know how to find a provider, and if you know the questions to interview them with, which is, by the way, I'm going to encourage you to go to notmedicaladvice.co. That's my website. If you go there, you can get a chance to actually, you'll see that I'm going to have up there my lead magnet, that one, like I'll trade you your email for this video and a PDF. So you can go through these questions and why to ask the questions and the answers to look for from medical providers that you find, such as from the ICAK or Health Profs or AccuFinder, the questions to ask them. And I'm going to make, I've made the one, first of all, the questions to ask a clinical or applied kinesiologist. I'm going to make questions to go over for a naturopath to sort of refine them down. And of course, questions for an acupuncturist, which is honestly not that hard. So that's that would be mostly it. If you have a medical condition, you can find professionals to help you. And I'm Daryl Becker, and I'm wishing you totally awesome health.